Creating an engaged student community through hackathons. Welcome to this video version of a talk that I originally delivered at a Birmingham City University learning lab along with Liam Sauter, who's a student who's been working with me. And this isn't a research presentation, this is really a practical discussion of a number of steps I've taken over the past year at Birmingham City University to develop a student community, and in particular to use hackathons, essentially collaborative programming activities with students, to really get them engaged and interested. So this may well form part of a research paper at a later date, but at the moment you're getting the bare bones of how well this approach has worked and what I've been able to do with it. So first of all, a little bit of background about what we've been working on, who've been working with. So I'm Dr. Thomas Lancaster, very much involved with computing and computer science across the UK in many roles, including with the Higher Education Academy, and a lot of my research is based around student employability, and that's a lot of my professional interests as well. And during the time just before giving this talk, I was program leader for BSc Computer Science, the biggest course in the Faculty of Computing Engineering in a Built Environment at Birmingham City University. So a fairly substantial undertaking with 165 first-year students joining the course this year, which is 4 times more than on the vast majority of courses in the faculty. Now, I've worked with a team of students as part of the wider work which I'm reporting on in this talk, one of whom is Liam Sauter, who's very engaged student, currently second year on BSc Computer Games Technology, and he's been involved with particularly game jams, very much like a version of a hackathon, but aimed at people who want to break into the games business. And he's had lots of other accomplishments, including working overseas, studying overseas, competitions. He's also a Microsoft representative as well, so particularly a partner there, which helps to bridge the gap between academia and industry. So he's been a great person to work with, and there's many other students involved in this work. So why have we been going about doing this? Well, all kinds of reasons really that led me to think of hackathons as being important for students, but one thing I wanted to address this year was really trying to improve the student experience, so both to make them more satisfied with the course, but also to give them more opportunities to make contacts and to experience industrially led working practices there as well. I also wanted to make sure that students had access to up-to-date technical skills, because we concentrate very much on computer science courses on teaching concepts supported by technology where appropriate, but academics can't always keep their technical skills as up to date as they would like with the speed that the industry moves and new technologies come in. And so it's about helping students to help themselves with the support of staff and with the support of industrial partners. The faculty I was working on has been talking a lot about offering students a defining event, something for them to get involved with, something very memorable that they will think about after the end of their course, will go on their CV. And I certainly support that view. I know that's going to happen more and more across the UK as well. And from my own personal perspective, I've always been very keen to work with partners. That's one of the strengths of working at Birmingham City University, has been the Student Academics Partners Scheme, which can support all of these activities. At the same time, with my own interest in employability, the university has also brought in its own employability weeks. This was a perfect opportunity to build towards bringing all of these skills together. As well as that, for some time now I've been looking to bring hackathons directly into the curriculum, and it's easier said than done because there's a huge amount of work that goes into these activities. And I've selected a few current and former students who've been involved with hackathons to show on this page, both the students and some of the companies they've been working for, as well as some very successful people who've gone into entrepreneurial careers, launched startups, and a lot of hackathon projects do end up forming startups. I'm not going to name them individually, but we've got examples on there of students who've met people at hackathons, have given them either placements, very highly paid placements I should say, or graduate positions. We've got local companies and local places where students can engage with industry and startups. A lot of hackathons happen in that space because they're great for companies for idea generation. There's also a current placement student who's working as well for a company that uses hackathons to pitch for business. So they go and they show what they can do within a constrained amount of time. And this happens a lot as well, both with companies and with individuals wanting to demonstrate their skills, not just to say they have these skills. And it's great because they can meet industrial mentors and companies looking for workers at these events. At the top right of the screen, we've got the logo for Global Game Jam, which is essentially an international series of hackathons. They all take place at approximately the same time, and the Games course has hosted Global Game Jam at Birmingham City University for some years now as well. So they've had plenty of experience working with hackathons, and although it didn't directly overlap with what we had to do with this project, it did help me to get access to Liam, who's been involved. So what exactly is a hackathon? I've given you a few examples of how they work, but generally it's some form of collaborative computer programming event. Students or people in industry or people who just want to get better at programming or to meet people, they get together at a predefined time in a predefined location to put together some computer programming. Now, often this is competitive in nature. There are sponsors for competitions, they set challenges, the teams work to complete these challenges to present what they've developed, and at the end to potentially win prizes. But it doesn't need to be. It can just be purely because people want to get time to work without distractions on their latest idea or to develop a new skill. And a great thing about hackathons is being able to develop these new skills, but also having these industrial mentors on site. Now, the most common model for hackathons is they tend to be 24-hour events or 48-hour events, and that means 24 or 48 hours continually. So if it's a university-based hackathon, students will stay in the building overnight. There might be a quiet area where they can go and sleep. Likewise, food is normally provided so students don't have to be distracted, and so there's that great environment for students to work in. And as soon as food is provided, you can probably understand there has to be a certain amount of sponsorship and support to make these events run and get them together. Now, there are equivalents to hackathons in other fields as well. For instance, business often do business startup type weekends. I've been involved with some of those. There are all kinds of ways of validating ideas. There are even areas in music or art where students and teams try and put on a show within a defined time period like this. So this idea does expand into other areas. Likewise, opportunities to bring different disciplines together as well as part of the hackathon process. So for instance, there are all kinds of things like developing a hackathon to support biologists, which can bring together those different areas, or it could be developing web type systems which can also allow people with artistic skills to get involved. So these are great as well for growing a community and encouraging collaboration across a university as well. So where does the wider university support come into this? And STAMP here stands for Student Academic Mentoring Programme, and essentially it's a partnership between staff and students at Birmingham City University where a team of mentors can go to help people with an area that they may be having trouble with, or which the university or a course team or an individual tutor is trying to develop. So I'm going to think about this a bit more along with my overall aims of really what's been the past year of my life working on this, and it's been to establish that community of students wanting to develop their employability skills through hackathons. My original aim was to try and get all the students on the computer science course involved, but also to make sure that other students on other courses could get involved if they wanted, because I'm not entirely devoted exclusively to computer science. It was also to improve their employability opportunities by getting those skills, by getting that involvement on the CV, which looks really good to potential industrial partners, and to provide these mentoring opportunities for the students who are interested. This is paid mentoring, so students are getting something out of this as well. And again, for the people on either end of that, it's a fabulous opportunity. So the funding was through the STAMP scheme, through a project called Hackathon Mentoring, and essentially it was to provide 200 hours of student support to run activities with students, training activities of additional skills they may not have, but which were useful for students, It was also to provide funding to get students to go to hackathons that exist elsewhere in the UK, so to pay for travel and the support they needed. Now, completely alongside that, I'm lucky enough to have had other support in place. Particularly, I had a placement student working with me, and one of his tasks was to look at arranging events and activities to improve student engagement on the course as a whole, of which the hackathon events fit in perfectly with that. I was also able to get some additional funding through the faculty from the student experience budget because we were able to extend the activities more widely within the faculty to other students as well, which is particularly useful for improving things like food and prizes to get students interested. And because of the success we had early on in this work, we were able to get several external sponsors as well to help with a big end-of-year event we put on, which was called BCU Hack. Here are a few of the different supporters we've had involved. The three people to the left are the main mentors. We've got AJ Raj, we've got Liam Sauter and Jake O'Connor. Now, Liam has been probably the most involved in this. One of the challenges I did find early on is that it was slightly harder to get mentors with the hackathon experience than I would like, and with the interest in really driving this forward. Although now we're at the stage where we have built up an engaged community, it's slightly easier to do that. At the top right we have Oliver Valechev, who's been a placement student, been working with me on this, particularly involved with the administration side of this, but he's got a certain personality which is very useful for driving things forward. And at the bottom, Pandalis Zambelis, who's a student who joined the first year this year and actually has been as involved with hackathons as anyone else on the course. And I mean, really, Pandalis will be perfectly placed to be a mentor and support other people, but he has taken on some of that role in his own time, completely independently of the funded work. And I do think having a team of students as partners is really important for driving projects like this forward, particularly if you think about how hackathon-like activities could be used in your university or indeed in other subject areas. So what happened? Has the project worked? Well, I want to say generally yes, generally been very happy about this. So one thing we did very early on in this work was decided we were going to use Wednesday afternoons to run events for computer science students. But that very quickly transformed itself into the idea of running events through an official student union society, and that did turn out to be something of a mistake, because as soon as the events were transferred over to a student union society, they suddenly stopped becoming course events. It looked like the course didn't really run anything, even though I was very, very heavily involved with all the events you can see on this slide. It's also proven quite problematic as we get to the end of the first year, because of the idea that the student union owns the society and they really don't want the staff to be involved with this. So that's just something to do with internal operations within the university I've worked at, which probably aren't particularly great way of going about. But in terms of what we actually accomplished, they could easily be transferred into other areas. So for instance, got the example there of various talks we put on, including both internal and external speakers. There's Daniel Dainty there, who's a second year computer science student who also runs his own company providing technical support, consultancy, training, networking for other businesses, and he was able to bring his experience of trying to employ students and showing why they didn't get jobs by providing real life examples, which is something that's quite hard to do as an academic teaching in that area. And that was one of the best attended talks we've had all year. So there is a link on the slide, which is on my SlideShare account as well, to take a look at what Daniel did, including a copy of the video. One thing we were able to do very successfully was get students along to external hackathons. You can see Liam Sauter there in both of those. It's good to have one of the mentors along towards those events. And a lot of other students went. We had quite a good pool of students who went to different events to choose from, completely different types of hackathons as well, particularly events supported by Major League Hacking, which is essentially it's what it says. It's a sports league of people taking part at hackathons from different universities and trying to develop their skills and improve their rankings. So it's a very devoted group of people who travel across the country, quite often a different hackathon every week. And we were lucky in that Major League Hacking have got their own sponsors which could support students getting to a number of those events. But several of these were in Birmingham and in the Midlands, which is a good area, which was great from a budgetary perspective and for allowing students to just get there on their own. As soon as the students get to hackathons, they get free food, they get a lot of other incentives, often free t-shirts, free badges, prizes as well. So it tends to be quite a cost-effective way as well of being a student to live. You can get as much pizza as you want at those events generally. And we did run our internal training sessions there. The attendance depended a lot as to who was presenting or what the topic was. We had some very successful ones, and they were structured through the society as well. So we were able to run lots of events, including some really interesting external speakers and networking, and I've also started being able to take students along to other networking opportunities in the Birmingham area in the evening as well, which is great from them, and I know some students have been offered jobs and summer internships as a result of that. Our first big success we had through this really was running a hackathon, essentially what I would call a practice hackathon. It was a 6-hour internal hackathon called Microhack because it was sponsored through Microsoft, and we're very happy that Liam was able to get the sponsorship for that, which paid for the food and pizza and drinks. The prizes was a bit of a top-up as well of additional things from within the university. And this worked out very well for the sponsor Microsoft as well, because we ran this through Microsoft Azure, which is their cloud hosting system. Students got access to that emerging and growing and industrial relevant technology, and they had to prototype something within 6 hours, a Wednesday afternoon and early evening, which, if you know anything about prototyping, isn't very long at all. But we had some committed teams joined us for that. I was able to introduce and present and run that one, and you can see the winning team at the right. And we're lucky to get several quite high up people within the university to come along and support that as well, including Professor Jonathan Bowen, who's a former member of staff who came back and was able to join in the judging with me and the prize giving, and Max Sharma, former head of school, computing, telecommunications and networks. Professor Nick Morton as well also came along. So I had a great group of people there supporting the students as well and showing that they really value this type of event. All of these different preparation activities built up to what was our big success, BCU Hack, a 24-hour hackathon, and it took place during the university's first employability week as well. So this was an opportunity to provide a showcase event, and just like Microhack, BCU Hack was entirely for students within the university. There are events open to people externally as well, but the idea here was to provide the students with a safe environment where they didn't need to worry about potentially not being successful or being shown up by students from outside either. So this started on Monday the 29th of February at about 10 in the morning, went through to about 4 p.m. on Tuesday the 1st of March. You may notice that's slightly more than 24 hours because there was some preparation at the start, there were some presentations, introductions from sponsors, and then after the 24 hours of coding and work on the different projects the teams were putting together, they had to present what they'd done as well. They also had to use industrial software to do this, to submit this using an external system for running hackathons delivered by one of our sponsors, Hacker Earth, as well. And I came up with the theme Take a Leap as a very wide open theme to give students plenty of scope to work from, because this was one of the rare leap years, an extra 24 hours for students, coincidentally enough the time they had to develop their software, and they're mainly web type products, occasionally apps, occasionally games as a result of this. Now, where I'm really pleased with this event is that we got a lot of sponsors along, including the university putting in money, but particularly a combination of both local companies who perhaps hadn't been involved with hackathons before, but we'd met during various events that we're involved with, particularly both me and Oliver Valechev, who'd been very active in finding sponsors, but also some well-known companies, educational companies like Codio. Other companies have sponsored things before as well, and it was great to use this and bring together all the different things you need for a hackathon, including sponsor challenges. So a lot of the sponsors set their own challenge for this that the students can work on, and the clever students managed to create software which would answer more than one challenge and perhaps work towards the overall BCU theme of Take a Leap as well. But they also provided the food, they also provided the refreshment during the event as well. So I say this is a success, but particularly for me as somebody who's really interested in marketing, it was a great marketing success because we were able to get a huge amount of publicity. We managed to get the BCU Hack hashtag trending on Twitter, which is really good. We got some really engaged students from this, and we got great feedback from our sponsors. So there's just a few examples of different tweets there from Hacker Earth, Codio, a lot of different blog posts from the sponsors and a number of students about this as well, talking about BCU Hack. We managed to get some merchandise produced, like badges and stickers, and we got the students their opportunities presenting in front of a large group of people. And you can see the winning entry there from a team of 4 students, 2 of which finally are computer science students at Birmingham City University, and they created Unicode, which was a really fantastic web app for helping people to learn Python programming. And what was really neat about Unicode was that other people could submit challenges through Twitter, which then were loaded up as part of the game engine, and that really impressed everyone involved, including me as one of the overall judges, including different sponsors as well. And we got some great prizes as a result of that. So I know that that team have now taken what they've done forward. A number of the team, for instance, have represented Birmingham City University outside the UK at a hackathon recently in Macedonia. And I know there are plans to develop this idea further through some other competitions, which is really showing the entrepreneurial benefits of this. But that's not to say anything about the other great teams there who did some great work as well. There were some games created which I didn't expect. There were students from all kinds of different courses, ranging from computer science, computer networks, computer games, even areas like sound engineering. And this idea can certainly be taken forward and run with and really grown in future years. And I know that a number of the sponsors are keen to come back and work further with Birmingham City University because of all these marketing benefits, and I know that the students are really keen to make sure that this runs again in the future as well. And from a personal perspective, I'm very pleased to being organised this great event on my CV. It was hard work. There was a surprising amount of challenges involved, even with little things like getting the university open overnight and getting all the different administrative aspects and technical support in place, but it was very worthwhile. So what were the positive results of this? A great community of engaged students. We did what we set out to do at the start. A slight downside, a slightly smaller community than I would have liked, but we did get 120 people registered for BCU Hack, of which slightly over half the people attended. A number of other people said they wish they'd gone, but other things turned up along the way and stopped them. One of the downsides of this was putting this in a week with no teaching on. We ran this on a Monday and Tuesday because hackathons are often the weekend, which isn't that attractive to students, but by the same token, Monday and Tuesday proved to be slightly challenging in a week without much else on that the students wanted to attend, and some students wanted to use this as a week to go back to their homes and continue with their work. I should say there were a lot of other employability related events on that week as well. It did provide a memorable experience. The students will look back on BCU Hack as being really important for them. And the useful external contacts, I know that students were able to do networking, particularly the ones who won the different prizes from different sponsors. They're very well looked back on, and we could have awarded a lot more prizes than we were able to do. There is still some money left in the budget as well for providing hackathon mentoring, and the plan is to look now at how this can be used online to provide online tutorials for students and perhaps webinar type training as well. Liam Sauter is going to be leading on this, and I know he has some excellent ideas about how to engage students online. He's looking at finding out what areas students want to learn about so that he can provide value. And this will be of great benefit to the students who aren't able to attend the sessions that have been put on in person, to support them with getting the skills needed for hackathons as well. It's also great because the university is moving towards the model of flipped learning with a lot more online tutorials replacing traditional lectures, and this is really a bit of a pilot to make sure that that approach is going to be successful. Now, there is really a huge amount of stuff I can say as a result of BCU Hack and our involvement in this process of both running hackathons, taking students to hackathons, encouraging engagement, and looking at the wider issues. And I'm Certainly thinking about a whole series of blog posts on thomaslancaster.co.uk/blog to bring some of these ideas together, and also some wider research we've been looking at to do this. But I want to give you some of the initial findings in this video. First of all, it's that there are such a huge amount of arrangements needed to make events like Microhack and BCU Hack take place, and it's the supporters you need both inside and outside the university. I've already mentioned some of the challenges, like being able to get security arrangements in place to keep buildings open, like being able to find labs that aren't timetabled to give students access to equipment, also finding Wi-Fi access for sponsors who are visiting and want to be involved. But this all needs to be done, and you need a really tight team of people who all have access to the full information, and you'll be surprised how exact timings need to be and administrative information, even just to make sure that when students arrive they're given their goodie bag, they're given all the information they need, they know about all the security arrangements, and there's a record of everything that's been done along the way. We managed to run BCU Hack in a way that I think it appeared to run very smoothly for students. There were a few headaches behind the scenes as things were going on, but a few lessons there to learn for the future. An area that's been mentioned in blog posts reviewing the event, and which to me is very important as well, as someone who's organised a lot of events before of different types, is catering. And this is quite a challenge to cater for a very diverse range of student needs and to get all the catering to the university at the same time, particularly when we were running, as well as lunches inside the university, we needed to put on a main meal in the evening, a midnight snack, which turned out to be pizza, breakfast, and a lot of things outside normal working hours of the university, and outside the canteen facilities, which are provided in-house as well. So there were just little challenges like coordinating a lot of Deliveroo bikes to deliver food to the university at the same time and making that within the budget, because we're very pleased to have sponsorship from Deliveroo, and one of our sponsors who was very keen for us to use Deliveroo for the catering as well. As a condition to do that, then a lot of caterers, Deliveroo, standard restaurants are limited to how many orders they can deliver at once, which means you have to order from multiple places, try and get everything in place. And it's quite surprised to find that the food arrives but without being labelled up. Likewise, just getting enough drinking for everyone is very difficult. Students get through a huge amount of water, energy drinks, and everything else. And there's a variety of different types of drinks that are preferred. We did have requests for healthy snacks as well as all the standard snacks, which is certainly something to think about when you're organising a hackathon, is having things like fruit and vegetables ready for people to snack on during the event. And just physically getting everything to one place at the right time needs a lot of people there to support. Now, marketing is a massive thing, both before the event to get students along and to show we're taking the event seriously for sponsors during the event, and after the event, down to things like sending thank you emails out to sponsors within 24 hours, and just to do all the summing up emails and blog posts and everything, and also to get students involved, because I know to some students it looks as if it's a bit of an imposition, but surprisingly enough there are sponsors who make requests, for instance being mentioned in a certain number of tweets by prominent university accounts, that have to be done. And so, as part of that as well, just getting permission to work with sponsors within the university does take some signing off, because clearly it's an important thing for the university, getting the right sponsors involved and looking at long-term relationships as well. Now, engagement as well was something that surprised me. I thought we would get the vast majority of students on the computer science course along to the hackathon, which, considering how many years I've worked at the university, is quite naive. But even with a lot of publicity, even with people going around the classes encouraging sign up and sending out reminder emails, a lot of students won't be interested, both because of the timing of the event, perhaps because of fear of failure, which is something we have to get around with more events like Microhack, starter events. But it's just working out how to bridge that gap. And when we were really successful with this event, getting first year students involved, and to a lesser extent second years, and to a lesser extent again third years. So that's great, because these students now will be involved all the way through their course, but we need to think about how to get students in later years involved as well. And I'm hoping, because of that bump with interested first years, we'll channel the second year being involved next year, which will also channel back to help them to mentor the first years, perhaps in a slightly more unofficial capacity than it has been this year. Likewise, there are a few debates about what format the event should take, and in the end I had to use my knowledge and really just insist, for instance, that it would be an internal event and not open to students elsewhere, which opens up a huge number of additional challenges to do that. And I think it was successful as an internal event, although I would support people who want to run a similar but different event open also to external students in the future. I think they'll find it harder than they may believe it will be originally. The partnerships I've mentioned, these can be quite a challenge. First of all, to find the sponsors in the first place. There are some standard people who like to sponsor hackathons, but they really want to know what they're going to get in return, which is fair enough because they are giving their money, and in many cases they're giving their time by spending mentors and other support people along as well. Likewise, some of the students really tested some new web systems and startup systems in the process of this, so the companies are benefiting from the feedback about how well their systems work as well. Some of the internal approval processes can take some time. I suspect that's true of any large public sector company, but it's something to be aware of. It's a big lead time, many months to put these events on. And I did find, unfortunately, that the student union, although I've always supported and worked closely with them, then in this particular project it was really counterproductive to long-term goals, which was to establish the greater enthusiasm and making a different style of events available than we have done before to students on the computer science course. So that's something perhaps for local consideration when putting on an academic hackathon. So what are the overall recommendations? First of all, these course-defining events are of absolutely immense value to students. I can't say that enough. And even though you may only get the top 10 or 20% of students along, then it's providing something they wouldn't get during their normal modules to work with. I think one thing I want to take forward from this is that actually getting some of the students on side to run this is important. I've looked at some of the external events run by Major League Hacking when they've had live video streams, which is something I'd like to be involved with in the future. That is the live video streams and streaming presentations and archiving them on YouTube. And they have a massive team of people, 10 or 20 people running these events, whereas we had really 3 or 4 people and a few staff who helped out but weren't able to be there continually because it is a big commitment to look at really something like 36 hours continually for the staff, including the time that students don't see before the official start and end times. And what's really needed is financial support, but in particular time release support to run this, and that's why getting students involved, perhaps by funding, perhaps because of their enthusiasm, is really important as well to do this. But this has been a successful process, and I'm really proud of the students I've worked with, because the Birmingham City University students went from not having participated really in external hackathons before, being ranked 5th out of over 300 teams in the fall season, that's the autumn season, of the European Union version of Major League Hacking, which is the sports league for computer programming that I mentioned earlier in this recording, as well as being the top 1992 university in there. So we got some great publicity from that. We got some great publicity for running BCU Hack, both for the university and for the sponsors, and some brilliant support for the students who took part, because it really demonstrates their involvement. So I'm really happy with the students' progress, because these students who have got involved will walk straight into great jobs. And there's one thing I hear from industrial partners all the time, is that it's very hard to get the right students from jobs, and it's very hard to identify which students are deserving of jobs and will deliver for the companies. And that's where hackathons will help people. And all these additional areas on LinkedIn profiles and CVs are so incredibly valuable. I hope this look at the different activities we've done to help students with hackathons and prepare for employment has been useful. I want to leave you with a few contact resources, because I'm very happy to speak to you if you feel that what I've done could be useful to you at your institution, or you're looking to bring your own hackathon stream online. I can also give talks in this area. I've got enough material for a full teaching seminar, and I hope soon to have a research seminar as well based around this. And there's a lot more examples I can share than I've been able to in this relatively short video today. So if you want to get hold of me, the easiest route is through my website, thomaslancaster.co.uk. You can also read more posts about webinars at thomaslancaster.co.uk/blog. Likewise, if you want to speak to Liam, his website is liamsorter.co.uk. You can also see our Twitter accounts on every slide, at Dr. Lancaster, at Liam Sorter. And my current email address, although due to a change in my working environment, that email address isn't likely to be valid by the time you watch this video. The slides are available for review as well. They're on my SlideShare account, slideshare.net/Thomas Lancaster, and you're probably watching this video on my YouTube channel with the user there being Dr. Thomas Lancaster. I just thank you for taking a look at the hackathon research. I think it is really valuable for students if you can put the time in to support it, and I know a lot of universities aren't doing hackathons already, but if I can add anything, do get in contact.